What is going on, John Middlekauff? This is GoLow, talking golf, talking PGA Tour, and talking Tiger Woods. He is back and looked pretty good. But this is the podcast. Make sure you subscribe. John Middlekauff on the 3 and Out feed. GoLow comes out every week. If you like golf, I got you covered. Volume's YouTube page, we got you covered. Content left and right. Subscribe, like, leave a comment on the video, as well as we are live on AMP every show. Got you covered there as well. And before we dive into the podcast, a lot going on. Check out my friends at Gametime. Listen, you want to go to an event, basketball game, March Madness right around the corner, baseball. Baseball is about to start. A lot of games, 162. But before they even start the season, they have this thing called spring training. You want to go to Florida, you want to go to Arizona, get some tickets. What you do is go to your app store in your smartphone. I know you have one. Download the Gametime app. It's the fastest growing ticket app in America. When you do, use the promo code JOHN, that's my name, John, and get $20 off. You want to take your brother, your dad, your girlfriend, your wife, your son to a game, to a concert. You want to go to a concert, just go to the Gametime app, search your favorite artist, see if he's coming to a city near you. And when you do that and you find that he is, use my promo code John. First-time users get $20 off tickets. Can't recommend it enough. Games, sports, hockey, obviously basketball, baseball, football. We got to wait a little bit, but that'll come back eventually. And obviously concerts, we got you covered. Promo code John, that's JOHN, for first-time users, $20 off. Can't recommend enough. If you're going to go to an event, use my promo code. That's how you thank me. I appreciate everyone that's listening and everyone that's used it. Keep hammering that bad boy. Promo code John. Okay, where do we want to start? I've never been to Riviera. I've obviously never played it. I would imagine most people listening fall under that umbrella as well. But every time this tournament comes around, every single year, you talk about it popping on TV. An old school, tough track with scoreable holes, right? There are par fives that guys can take advantage of. And then there are just diabolical holes. I mean, hole 10 looks impossible, yet it's 300 yards. And I think what's cool about professional golf, and this is why we love the majors, specifically like the US Open, or when the British Open gets really hard, depending on the venue, maybe, the PGA Championship, like to watch guys struggle or really, really have to work for par. And that's what Riv reminds me of. Just a very, very difficult course. Now, these guys are so good. Obviously, Jon Rahm, and we'll dive into in a second. I mean, they're going to shoot 15, 16, 17 under par, the top guys at least. But if you looked at the leaderboard, the best players in the world were right there. Literally, I mean, two of them. I think Scottie Scheffler was T12 and Jon Rahm won it. But just a fantastic tournament. I'm biased. I'm a West Coast guy. Love the West Coast swing. I mean, it just doesn't get any better. And I know Pebble Beach has been diminished over the years, but Pebble, Torrey, Waste Management, obviously Riv, it's just a cool stretch. Starting in Hawaii, the views, it's hard to beat. I've never played golf in Florida. Obviously, they have some really good golf courses, some really hard golf courses. I don't even think it's comparable. The West Coast swing, greater side, the Florida swing. But it's over now, and Jon Rahm officially stamped, like I said this last show, there are 3 players that have kind of separated themselves over the last year, right? Rory, Rahm, Scottie Scheffler. And the way I described it was Scottie Scheffler is the most unique, Rory's the most pure, the most talented, and Jon Rahm is the best. And right now, Jon Rahm is on a heater of all heaters. Even for him, he's been one of the better players in the world now for a while. But I think officially he's the number 1 player in the world. I think we all, if you follow the game and everything with Liv, I think we have to acknowledge, I don't really take it that seriously anymore. But I think it's fair to say, if you had to bet on one single guy, if your life depended on it to beat someone else, you would take Jon Rahm. If you had to bet on one single guy to win a golf tournament, you would bet on Jon Rahm. If you had just bet $100, $1,000, whatever, on Jon Rahm every single tournament in 2023 to win, you would be up a lot. I was playing golf yesterday, and we were talking about if we just put $1,000 to start this year on Jon Rahm every single week, you'd be up big. And his odds have been terrible. I overthought it this week. I'm like, I'm going to bet Justin Thomas. Right away, I knew I'm screwed. I should have bet Rahm or Homa. And to me, Jon Rahm is just, it looks like he is poised to have a historic year. One of those 6-7 wins, 2 majors, like, holy shit. One of those that kind of elevates his status for the rest of his life in the game of golf, right? He's already one of this era's better players, and it feels like he's trending to be like an all-time great talent. But there's a difference of having a year. Like, remember 2023 when this dude won 7 times and 2 majors? And here's the other thing. And regardless what you think of Phil and Liv, like, it did force the tour into action from a financial standpoint to pay these guys more money. And when you go on a heater now of, let me just read you 2023 for Jon Rahm. First in Hawaii, first in Palm Springs, 7th at Torrey Pines, 3rd at Waste Management. He didn't even play that well. First last week, 3 wins and a 3rd and a T7. I mean, if he doesn't get in the top 5, it is shocking. He's already won close to $10 million. Jon Rahm is poised to have a season. I'm just going to assume he's going to win the FedEx. He's obviously going to get some PIP cash. He's going to have a $40 million season. He's already super loaded, super rich. And this guy, like, one thing that happens now, if you have a great season in golf, it is very, very lucrative. Hell, Max Homa has already won over $6 million. He's poised to have a $20 million season. So the amount of money you can win now because of these elevated events, when you play at a really high level and go on a heater, is kind of stupid, you know? And it was kind of, you know, symbolic that Tiger was around, because the reason all this money, regardless of even Liv, is even fathomable is because of Eldrick Tiger Woods. But now Rory, you know, before, guys like Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, all these guys have really benefited from it. But now if you win these elevated events, like, he just won $3.6 million. Hell, Max Homa got second and won over $2 million. The cash is flowing in this bad boy is incredible. And no one is poised to take more advantage of it than Jon Rahm. Like, if you are one of these top guys and you're just in the mix all the time and you win a couple times a year, there really isn't that much of a draw to go to Live if that's not really your vibe, right? Because Rahm even admitted last year, I turned down 40, you know, whatever, $400-500 million. I think people are speculating. Now, I don't know if he's going to win that much playing on the PGA Tour, but he's going to rack up a ton of golf or a ton of money playing golf when he wants to play golf. So it's fun to watch an elite player come into his own, and that's what's happening to Jon Rahm. And listen, Max Homa, I think he's officially 8th. Again, like, I don't really necessarily take the rankings that seriously. He's clearly one of the best players in the world. And he's a guy who is kind of replaced, which you kind of notice it, right? Cam Smith, DJ. I know Koepka had been shitty for a while. We'll get into him in the Netflix series. Bryson, Patrick Reed, just some of the core guys who have won big tournaments who are just no longer around, who I don't want to say diminish the field strength, but it's not quite the same. And part of the way to make up for those guys who are never coming back, we think, you never know, get to Brooks Koepka, is you need some guys to step up. And I think Max has. And these last couple years, he has been awesome. And you watch him, obviously, statistically, I mean, when he's in the mix, he wins. This is the first time that he's been, like, had a real chance to win. Hell, been leading and didn't win the tournament. Like, part of his deal, like 4 or 5 wins, like, when he's in the mix, he closes the door. Little different when you're playing with Jon Rahm, and it's why he got emotional after, obviously, from LA. But Max Homa's a star. I mean, he just is. Like, Max Homa's going to win a major. I mean, that feels like a lock. And to me, I've said it over and over, like, he's going to win the U.S. Open or the PGA Championship. He is a fantastic, tough golf course player. So it's cool to watch a guy, you know, I would say he's a little bit of a late bloomer, though. I mean, he won the national championship in college, but in terms of his professional career, it's well documented now. And he's just one of those guys who kind of gets it, you know, who's been fantastic in terms of, he was the first guy to try the ear pod, you know, or the AirPod in his ear for television. And he just feels like, I don't know him, but seems like a good guy, and obviously just, you know, becoming an elite player. And it's just fun to watch. Second, last year, you know, I thought Tiger's master performance was one of the coolest things ever, because no one thought he was going to play. And then just out of nowhere, I think it was like the week before, he's like, Tiger Woods is playing in the Masters, and him limping around, you know, by the weekend, him making grimaces on his face. It was it was admirable because I say this all the time. Anytime you're that rich, that accomplished, and he's old, like, why is he doing this? The level of, like, most human beings would not do that, right? They would just tap out. Like, what do I, for who, for what? As Ricky Waters once says. There's a level of pride deep down in the guy's stomach, in his loins, that separated him his entire life. And he still has that, because at 47 years old, and I said last week, listen, he's a businessman. He understands playing in this tournament draws eyeballs. But I also think it's like, he's kind of bored. He wants to play, but it's very difficult with, I don't know, a fake ankle, a reconstruction knee, and a fused back. But he just keeps grinding. And hell, on Saturday, he shot 67. And he was 5 under, actually, with like 3 holes to go. And then he made, I think, a bogey on 15 or 16. It actually could have been 66. But to me, he looks dramatically better, just physically, and relative to like where he's ever going to get. And my takeaway was watching him this weekend. And I think early on in the tournament, I mean, he was hitting balls like 330 yards. He outdrove Rory. His ball speed, his swing speed was just pretty eye-opening. It's honestly, it kind of sucks that if he hadn't, now one was self-inflicted, but the back, if he had just stayed healthy, who knows? But obviously that's not the case, and he is a banged-up golfer. But it's just cool to watch the guy around. And I think it's fair to say, if he's healthy, he's obviously going to play the majors every year. But I think we get Riv. I also think, without saying it, like, how's he not going to play the players? I think we're getting a guy now that maybe plays 2 or 3 extra PGA Tour tournaments on top of the majors. And clearly he's just in a pretty good mindset of he looks happy playing golf, and he's honestly pretty good. You know, his putter was atrocious. I think that's one of the most relatable things anyone can have. And I would imagine, never played on the PGA Tour. You know, one thing that's pretty evident at Riv, those greens are hard. They are fast. It can't be easy just to show up when you haven't been in the mix of playing in these tournaments, of getting used to, you know, just the speed of a weekly basis of PGA Tour greens, and then just show up and compete. And honestly, 2 out of the 4 rounds he did, right? He shot under par 2 out of the 4 rounds. I think that's an incredible accomplishment. At one point in time on Saturday, dude was in the top 20. I mean, top 20, was beating a ton of dudes that are elite golfers. So it's just fun to have Tiger back. And like I said, Tiger plays, I watch. It's a pretty simple formula. If Tiger's involved, I'm involved as a consumer. And most people that follow this sport are. So the more Tiger can play, the better it is for the sport. I think he understands, like, not that they need him in the sense of, because he's never going to be what he once was, but his presence is very, very important. And there's a big difference of just showing up and actually playing in the event. Like, it takes it to 50x, right? It's why the majors, he could just go to the Masters and be around. It's a lot different of him playing in the Masters, of him playing in the U.S. Open. And he was going to be around this event no matter what, because it's his. But him just sitting there with Jim Nantz on Saturday or Sunday bullshitting, you know, in joggers and Nike tennis shoes, is a lot different than him on the course playing and then coming up to the booth talking about his round and the tournament. And I think we felt that this week. And it's always, the more he plays, the better it is, even in this kind of form that he's in, which at times can be tough to watch because there is just a noticeable limp. But clearly he's even acknowledged that's never going away. It's remarkable how good he is at golf still. I guess you work that hard for that long, you just never lose it. I watched some of Netflix. I've watched the first episode on JT and Spieth. I watched the second episode on Koepka and Scheffler. And I watched, I think, the 4th episode on Joel Damon. And here were a couple of my big takeaways. One, I thought the first episode was kind of meh. And part of it is, like, I'd say JT and Jordan Spieth are 2 of the most covered players in the sport. So unless they're going to be really vulnerable, and JT's dad was a little bit, but it's like, I don't really know what we're going to gain beside these guys just kind of kicking it, right? But I feel like I have so much content of them just kind of kicking it. Nothing is really different from if you listen to this, you probably follow the golf pretty closely. Like, you're not going to gain anything new, right? One thing, and listen, I am not a documentarian, right? I have no work in this industry. So I'm not trying to act like I know how to make one of these better than these guys that made it, because these guys clearly know what they're doing. But if they would ask my advice after just kind of peeking what you would have done, Now, all these episodes are not dependent on the other episode, at least in the ones I've watched. Like they're just kind of their own, snapshot or in-depth look at the guy they're talking about in that given episode. Like most shows on Netflix, if there are 8 episodes, you have to watch in 1, 2, 3, 4. You can jump around in this one pretty clearly. So you could have started the entire show with and Tiger did not participate in this, but this tour of this group of guys is a creation of Tiger Woods, right? Especially a lot of the stars. They all looked up, idolized the guy. How could you not? He was the Michael Jordan of the sport when all these guys that are in their mid to late 20s up to the mid 30s, he was the guy when they were kids. Why didn't you just start the whole show of just all those guys, because they are participating, just talking about Tiger Woods? Because you get all the footage from the tour in terms of you're allowed to use it. They clearly gave you the thumbs up to just make it about his influence on the sport. I thought that would have been more powerful leading into kind of the show. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what, if I would have got one like, hey, what would you have done? That would have been my move. Just kind of them talking about the influence he's had and then kind of building it around what the tour is today with all these young, kind of more athletic guys because of Tiger Woods. Like that is the sport you're covering. It is just a creation of Tiger. Brooks Koepka. I played golf on Friday and Saturday. On Friday, I played pretty damn well. I had a couple birdies. I had an eagle. I shot 75. Then I played on Sunday at True North. It's a very hard course up in North Scottsdale, and it was windy. I barely broke 90. I think one of the most relatable, and I'm like a 3-4 handicap, who plays a lot better in the summer than I do the winter because I play more. But whether you're a 10 handicap, whether you're a scratch golfer, whether you're a 20 handicap, golf is a very frustrating game. It is very difficult. And Azinger has said this on television before, and Brooks Koepka reiterated that. Golf is a sport where on any given shot, you can feel like all your confidence is gone and you're never going to get it back. And it's just gone. You're like, it could be in the middle of the round. It could be in a driving range. Like, I have no clue what I'm doing. And it's also the sport after one shot, you pure a 5-iron, hit a beautiful drive or stick a wedge, you go, I'm going to kick everyone's ass. And the confidence, you feel like you're unbeatable for that one given shot leading into the next shot. And it's so fleeting. At any moment it can go, and at any moment it can come. And say what you want about Koepka, I thought he was very vulnerable in that episode and was just good talking about confidence. Because I actually think that's one of the most relatable things in the sport of golf. I think every single human, whether you're Tiger Woods, Jeff Bezos, or, I don't care who you are, it goes up and down at points and times in your life. Now, some people have it for longer stretches than others, but it is one of the most normal, relatable human emotions is how confidence inside you at a given time, whether it's professionally, whether it's personally, it's part of life. And obviously professionally, we've all gone through highs and lows. The older you get, it's unavoidable, right? You've had good years, you've had bad years. Some of you have been laid off. Some of you have been promoted. Like we all, the older you get, you have gone through the gamut of emotions professionally. You've had record year sales. Your company's gone under, right? It's part of being a human being in America. And I thought Koepka talking about like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get it back after I was kicking everyone's ass was just pretty cool. It really is. And I don't expect to get that just listening to some other podcasts and people talking about it. I don't know, like Jordan Spieth in the first episode. Part of what makes Jordan so cool is Jordan Spieth was a historical player. Won those majors, became just an all-time phenomenon, and then he just kind of fell off the map, was playing pretty shitty. And they don't even talk about that. Like, that is what relates us to these golfers, right? Ricky Fowler. If I was doing season 2, it would be Ricky Fowler clearly is pretty solid at golf again. Like, what was it like being an elite player, kicking ass, getting top 5s in all these majors, winning tournaments, not that many, but he won some, and just being considered one of the better players on the PGA Tour, to then being really shitty? Like, what is that like? Even though we can't relate to it as normal golfers, it is a relatable trait in the sport of golf, right? And we don't get enough of that. And whether it's because they feel guarded. They don't want to give that to us, but I thought Koepka did a really good job. And I also think you could build this entire show off kind of more of the journeyman. And I know you need some of the stars. Like that's why I would do the Tiger Woods, episode. But I think more Joel Damon's is actually better content. Now, I know he's a unique person, unique story, but I think following more guys who are struggling to make it, like there was a scene in his episode where he was in the mix in the U.S. Open in 2022. And he comes, I think it's on Sunday, and he walks in the clubhouse as Jon Rahm, Rory McIlroy, and Colin Morikawa. And they're talking about private jets, And obviously, Joel Damon, I don't know if maybe he is now, but he's not like a consistent private jet flyer. And I think that is more relatable to the consumer. Even, listen, golf, like relative to the other sports, much higher household income. Much people with money play golf relative to other sports, right? But still, most people that play golf are not flying private jets, are not multimillionaires. They actually relate more to Joel Damon, the guy who's just kind of trying to make it. Easy-go-lucky guy, frustrated with the game. It's hard. And I think you hammer home more guys like that makes for better content than just following, Justin Thomas because he's a star. Even though I bet on him all the time, he never wins me any money. That's saying about Max Homa. I would feel much more confident on a weekly basis putting my cold, hard cash on Max Homa than Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas. So to me, that's the way that I judge players. Am I more confident putting money on you? Or do I know right away on Friday, like, should have done that? Wish I wouldn't have done that. And that's how I feel about Max Homa relative to some of these other top Americans, because I would rather bet on Max Homa than those other two guys. Justin Thomas, not happy. Put several C notes on him, and he wasn't even close. But I thought the Joel Damon episode was that's just good content. It just is. And speaking of Koepka, there was a story this week about him interested in coming back to the PGA Tour. And I actually think you watch that episode, you get it. Like part of what he liked was like being on the big stage, was competing. And I think it's pretty clear him specifically, he went to live because he thought like his body was fucked and he'd never get it back and he'd never compete. And I wonder if now maybe he's feeling better. Maybe he thinks like you turn on the television, you watch the Waste Management, which he's won before, and go, I kind of miss that. I'm going to be playing where? On the CW. No one's going to watch me. The golf doesn't matter. Now, I got rich, right? And listen, I was pro. I understand why all these guys took the money, but I wonder if it's starting to cross his mind, like, this kind of sucks. Like, it's cool having the money, but, like, what else do I do? Like, my wife already annoys me. I'm not putting that out there. He acknowledged that on the episode. And I just wonder, like, you missed the juice. Like, you watched the last 2 weeks. Now, these are two of the bigger tournaments of the year, non-majors, right? Right up there with the Players and Memorial, but a lot of juice. And part of what any elite athlete at the top of their profession, I would say anybody, professionally at a high level wants, is the juice. Why so many rich guys, anyone listening to this knows a lot of successful older people. It's like, why can't this guy just kind of quit and retire? Because he gets bored. He likes the juice of doing a deal. How many successful people do you know in like their 50s, 60s still do deals when it's like, bro, you don't have to do that. You got enough cash, just chill. But they can't help themselves. They love the transaction, right? No different than a golfer. They like being on the weekend with a lot of people watching and it really mattering. And that's the one thing like Liv's just not going to have. And I wonder if Koepka's like, God, I miss that element of my career because that's clearly not coming back. And yeah, I mean, I thought, I hope that they're able to get, and I know this season doesn't really have it, more Koepka's. If you're going to get the elite players, what makes that interesting is them talking about the struggle. And like Joel Damon doesn't need to talk about the struggle. He is the struggle, right? He is the guy just trying to put food on the table for his caddy. But the top guys who have all this money, who live in these enormous houses in these sweet communities, what makes them relatable is why they can sit there on their couch and go, shit, I don't know what I'm going to do. My game sucks. I do not have it right now mentally. And listen, if Koepka or any of these guys, to me, ever want to come back, I think the tour would be foolish. The top guys, not the older guys, and they're not going to want to come back. But any of the guys under 40, Bryson, and who knows, but Cam Smith, and I don't think he'd come back either. But DJ probably won't come back either. but it'd mainly be Koepka. I would have no problem allowing him back.